This E46 Compact is my first car. What's funny is that I always pictured my first car being something like a Civic or a Corolla. And instead, I ended up with this BMW, mainly because it cost literally half as much as the cheapest running Corolla I could find at the time. The previous owner was offered to trade it in at a dealership for a €500 discount on their new car. I offered them my €1,000, including handling fees, which was my entire budget, and they agreed. The car had 374,000 kilometers on it, which to most people sounded like a terrible idea. They told me the car was at the end of its life and that I was just wasting my money. Seeing their reactions, I started doubting myself and got a bit worried. Still, I hoped it would at least survive for a year. And that was 8 years ago. Today, the car has well over 500,000 kilometers on it, and yet it still feels strong. It's taken me to the university, to work, and even given me plenty of fun at the racetrack. Time and again, it's proven the skeptics wrong, and at some point, I started wondering, what if I pushed it further? What if I took it on a proper road trip, like on a continental scale? Could it really make the journey from Madrid, Spain's capital, all the way to Wrocław, a city in the southwestern Poland? Of course, the doubters spoke up again, calling me crazy. But I think there's only one way to find out.
(6:07 in the morning). We have 524, 827 kilometers, and the trip begins here.
Quick stop for refueling. On the first day, we covered around 400 kilometers and reached a campsite in Comillas, a town on Spain's northern coast near Santander. We spent 3 days there camping with friends, and up to that point, it didn't feel much different from other trips I'd taken around Spain. It was simply a good warm-up. But things started to change on the third day, when we finally set out to cross the first border.
Right now it's 7 o'clock in the morning. We are about to embark on the second phase of this trip. It's 8:19 in the morning. We have 525, 321 kilometers.
From the campsite, we had a 3-hour drive to the last cheap Spanish gas station, right next to the French border.
The last cheap gas station in Spain.
France would be the longest stretch of all the countries we'd be crossing on this trip, and it also had the highest fuel prices. So I brought a 20-liter fuel canister which, combined with the BMW's large fuel tank and its diesel engine, gave us enough range to cross France without buying any fuel. 525, 578. We have a new light lit up on the dashboard. We need to buy some washer fluid. After taking care of that small inconvenience, we continued our journey towards France.
Let's go to France.
Here I thought we were just approaching the border and assumed the cabins ahead were border control. But in reality, we were already in France and those cabins turned out to be toll booths. European borders can be surprisingly confusing when traveling by land, at least for me, since there are rarely clear signs to show exactly where you've crossed. You simply keep driving and at some point you notice that the traffic signs look different, and that's how you realize you are in a different country. But anyway, for the rest of this day, our journey through France turned into a routine of driving and paying tolls. By 10 p.m., we were both pretty exhausted, but with Germany only 3 hours away, we decided to push on. 5:26.396. It's 10:16 p.m. and we still have 3 hours to go to reach Germany, and the plan is to drive through the night. I don't know how much longer, but I have a double shot of espresso from Starbucks over here and we will see. I almost forgot that we need to top the fuel a little bit. The things I do just to not refuel in France.
¿Así demasiado?
No.
¡Yuhu!
Having added those 20 additional liters of fuel, we continued our journey towards Nuremberg-on-Rhine. By then, the long hours behind the wheel were really starting to weigh on me. The car seats aren't exactly made for this kind of marathon driving. But still, the thought of bringing this little BMW back to its home country was enough to keep me going. So I pressed on until at some point I realized the French traffic signs have quietly given way to German ones.
River. So this is Germany already, I suppose. We are officially in Germany.
It turned out we had just crossed the Rhine, which meant we were officially in Germany, and finally able to refuel at a semi-reasonable price. After refueling, it was 1:30 a.m. and I felt pretty tired, but somehow crossing the border gave me a burst of energy, because I was thinking, I'm driving my 23-year-old German car through Germany itself. And at that moment, the car had 526,000 kilometers on the clock, the equivalent of traveling to the moon and halfway back to Earth. And so I drove for another hour in complete silence, simply astonished by this fact, before finally deciding it was time to call it a night.
2:35 a.m. We are 733 kilometers from our destination, but we have to stop and take a nap. Good morning. "7:33 in the morning."
After 4 hours of sleep and a cup of freshly brewed coffee, we set off again. To be honest, I don't think I was fully awake until it was my turn to drive again. It was a beautiful morning on the Autobahn, and everything was going according to plan. We passed Karlsruhe, Heilbronn, and Nuremberg. And then, as we were approaching Münchberg, something happened.
We've been pulled over by the German police, and they asked us if we have any drugs or large amounts of cash. More news. We don't have cold air anymore. The AC belt has ripped off completely, so I need to buy a replacement for it.
A broken belt isn't the end of the world, but driving in the summer without air conditioning definitely sucks. Fortunately, we were on the Autobahn, and cruising at 150 kilometers an hour with the windows down provided a bit of a relief. I drove another 200 kilometers before we decided to stop for lunch and enjoy a bratwurst. And, true to my BMW enthusiast self, I couldn't resist picking up a little souvenir. After lunch, we continued on our journey, with Poland getting closer by the kilometer. And at 3:16 p.m. on day 4, we finally crossed the Polish border.
Okay, so is this Poland or not?
Yeah.
The signs have changed. I will turn on my lights. Yeah, we are in Poland.
One thing that makes border crossings a bit disorienting is how your phone's GPS tends to glitch right around the crossing. As you move from one country to another, your internet service provider disconnects you from the network of the country you're leaving and connects you to the network of the country you're entering, a process that usually takes a couple of minutes. Once the signal returned, we drove through the beautiful Polish countryside for an hour before finally arriving at our apartment. Over the next couple of days, we managed to find a local BMW mechanic who helped us with sourcing a new AC belt.
And this was the problem. It got chewed up pretty bad. Look at this. And why didn't we stop in Germany to buy replacements for this? Because Germany is very good for German cars, but the best country in the world to have a problem with an old E46 BMW, which country is it? That's right, Poland. Now let's see if we have cold air. Beautiful.
With the car now fixed and ready for long distances, we set out to explore the city of Wrocław.
Good morning. Today we have 527,694 kilometers, and today we are going to be doing the last little part of the trip towards Wrocław. So let's go. A little bit of a cold start there.
We still had about 100 kilometers to drive to reach the city, and everything was going great until just as we were approaching the Tarczyński Arena, the battery light suddenly came on.
Oh.
¿Qué? ¿Qué?
Se me acaba de encender la luz de la batería.
This usually means one of two things. Either the battery has reached the end of its life, which would be the better case scenario, or it's the alternator, which is much more complicated and expensive to fix. So we crawled our way to the stadium parking lot to run a diagnostic.
We have reached Wrocław, but we have a problem. I'm doing a battery test and 11.7 and it's not charging. So we have a bad alternator. Okay, our game plan is the following. We are taking an Uber and we are going to go to an auto parts store and see if they have the alternator that I need. Here we arrived at the parts store. Let's see if they have what we need. Okay, next update. Poland really is the best place in the world to have problems with an old BMW. I checked with an old video I made a few years ago replacing the old alternator, and I was able to find the reference code in the video, and I tell them, okay, this is the code, this is what I need, and they're like, okay, we can have it in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. In Spain you have to wait for like 3 or 4 days. And exactly 15 minutes later we have the new alternator. Shout out to everybody in Auto Market. Now let's call an Uber and replace the alternator. We are back at the stadium. Let's fix the car.
So I bought a new alternator, and since I had my tools with me, I decided to tackle the replacement myself.
First thing we need to do is to disconnect the battery. Like this. One.
Mal, pero.
Okay. This is good. This is very good. Let's leave. Oh shit. Perfection. Whew. Opa.
Yeah.
Out with the old and in with the new. Let's do a quick comparison. Yeah, exactly the same. Nice. Poland is the best place for these kinds of cars. Opa. Let's put the steering pump back on. I need the pasek, the big pasek.
I'm going to give you the big pasek.
Big pasek.
There you go, the big pasek.
The big long one. Yeah, the big guy. The big pasek is in place. I want to turn on the key and see if everything is okay,
Yeah, sure.
if the
There you
car
go.
is not on fire and
Yeah.
everything.
Let's go.
Before we do that. $14.4. The battery is charging now. Everything is.
Yay!
This is how it was supposed to be.
Let's go!
Mission accomplished. Tiempo. Just remembered that I bought this in Germany. And it was like a cool souvenir. And after what happened, I feel like I honored this little plaque. It's cool.
Yeah.
The cool and the funny thing about this is also that that stadium over there is where Ultra Race takes place every year. So it's cool that I repaired my car near the place where Ultra Race is celebrated.
And after getting that sorted, we finally got to the center of Wrocław.
We are looking for a bar mleczny.
There is a restaurant.
We found the bar mleczny. Here's where the second stage of this trip ends. We reached our final destination.
We spent our remaining days in Poland, enjoying the countryside and visiting old friends. And maybe thinking about buying an old Ford F-250. And on day 12, it was time to head back home.
It's 5:40 in the morning. Yesterday was our last day here in Poland, and today we are going back to Spain. We have approximately 24 hours of driving ahead of ourselves, and I'm very curious to see how long it will take us to do the trip back to home. We also have 2 stops here in Poland before leaving. First we have to go to the gas station to get cheap fuel, and then we have to stop at the pączkarnia to buy some pączki. Okay.
Mira.
Ooh. And with the smell of those freshly baked pączki, we initiated our 2400 kilometer trip back home. We're approaching the German-Polish border. It's 7:46 in the morning. Everything is okay. As soon as we entered Germany, I got excited about the Autobahn and how quickly we could cover large distances driving through this country. We coming in Sachsen. But there was one variable I didn't consider. When you come to Germany and you expect that everything is going to be fun, Autobahn, doing 200, yeah. The reality is that in summer they do a lot of road works. And you have to go like this with a speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour. After 4 kilometers of roadworks, we found the open road again. Finally, the Autobahn again. Stairways. Yay.
¿Así?
Alternating between roadworks and fast sections of the Autobahn, we crossed Germany and at 5:16 p.m. we arrived at the same gas station where we refueled last week, going in the opposite direction.
Let's put in some fuel.
It's 5:30 in the afternoon and we have crossed into France and we are reaching Mulhouse and we are going to stop for a quick coffee and une petite pipi. Sadly, the coffee and the pipi would have to wait as the weather wasn't on our side. Though 20 kilometers down the line, the sky cleared a little, and we managed to stop and grab a bite. After a delicious afternoon snack, we got back on the road.
Let's go again!
But by the looks of the sky, we very soon realized that the weather still had more in store for us. Just like earlier in the afternoon, the rain lasted for another 20 kilometers before things improved. I thought we have left the worst part behind us, but judging by the lightnings ahead, it looked like we were driving straight into the eye of the storm. Driving in these conditions was very challenging.
so I decided to pull over and wait for the storm to pass. And that was a bad idea. The car stuttered for a moment and all I could think was, did I just hydrolock the engine? When I finally reached the top of the hill, I realized the engine was fine. It's been a close call. We pulled over to let the adrenaline settle and figure out our next move. The weather forecast showed the storm was too widespread to escape. But staying here for the night didn't feel safe either.
Let's hope I don't hydro block the engine.
So we got back to the road and started to look for resting areas on Google Maps. We found one an hour and a half later and decided to stay there for the night.
Yeah, I think we are going to stay here.
It's 6:30 in the morning. I slept like shit. Yesterday it was raining so hard that we just had to stop and rest for a little. Right now we have 6:37 in the morning and we have 5:29, 872 kilometers.
We want to skip the breakfast and just keep driving and get to Spain as soon as possible.
That morning, I felt pretty unenthusiastic about our drive through France and just wanted to head straight across the border. Eventually, the weather settled down, and so did I. That's when I realized I had never actually had a croissant in France. And since we also needed to refuel, we decided to pull over and take care of both things at once.
First time having a croissant in France.
Having crossed that off my bucket list, we got back on the road and powered through the last stretch of our drive through France. At 1 p.m., we crossed the border into Spain.
nearest gas station. "5:25 in the afternoon, and we are finally home. We have 530,917 kilometers. I am tired.
So, to answer my original question, yes, I can take this car on a road trip across Europe. Against all odds, we proved the skeptics wrong, reaching Poland and making it back home. It turns out that when people say you can't, it often has less to do with you and more to do with their own fears. Don't get me wrong, the road wasn't without obstacles. There were breakdowns, a few close calls. But those struggles only made the journey richer. They reminded us that life is about more than just getting from A to B. It's about the stories you collect along the way. Now, the odometer reads 531,000 kilometers. And who knows, maybe it's near the end. Or maybe this engine still has another 500,000 left in it. All I know is that one day, inevitably, I'll take this car out for its final drive, whether it's because the engine gives out, a mistake of mine puts it to rest, or new environmental regulations force it off the road. But until that day comes, I'll keep driving it, I'll keep fixing it, and I'll keep chasing that feeling of being alive. Because that is what this car has always given me.